I'm Dr. Jean Wagner with A to Z Pediatrics, and we are a private pediatric office in Caseyville, Illinois. I'm one of 3 doctors there, myself, Dr. McGranahan, and Dr. Eberhardt, and then we have 4 nurse practitioners who also practice with us. We've got Claire, Andrea, Melissa, and Joe, and 2 locations. So we have Bethalto and Caseyville. So this is my 3rd live episode. My first one was about feeding, and my second one was about pooping, and this one's about sleeping. So pretty much the 3 big things that I think probably cover the most questions that we end up talking about in the visits. And I think next time, I'm going to talk about fussy babies and colic. I think that's going to be my next topic, unless you guys... Hi, Janet. I miss you too. I was just looking at Facebook and I was looking at something that you had posted. Anyway, I think colicky fussy babies is going to be my next topic, but definitely I am open to suggestions. So throw them on the comments if you guys have other things that you think would be good ones for me to talk about as the weeks come on through the summertime. So, okay, we are going to get started. So we're going to talk about sleep, or the lack thereof, because once y'all have a kid, none of us are sleeping. And I don't know that it gets any better, because mine are 21 and 17. And if they don't come home and get into their beds, I'm not sleeping still. So I'm not sure that it gets a whole lot better, but I do sleep through the night. I will say that. No one's waking me up every 2 hours to eat. They can do that all by themselves. Let's talk about kind of normal sleep. And that is that at the beginning, they sleep a lot. It feels like they wake often, but they sleep probably, 20, 22 hours a day when they're first born. By about 4 months, that goes down to about 12 to 16 hours in a 24-hour period. As they approach the elementary school years, you're down to about 10 to 12 hours. And then as you get into the teen and adult years, you're down to about 8 to 10 hours. And that's what they should be doing. Many of them are not doing, but that's what they should be doing. So that's kind of what normal amounts of sleep are that we're looking for in kids. I want to really focus for a couple of minutes on safe sleep in babies, because this is something that I'm very, very passionate about. When babies are born, one of the things that I focus on is safe sleep. And that means that a baby should be sleeping alone and on their backs. And that means nothing in the crib but them. We want them to be sleeping on a firm mattress, so not soft, not smushy. It should be a firm mattress specifically meant for babies. They are made to a very specific consistency so that they can't get their faces in them and suffocate. So it should be a firm mattress. They should be alone. They should be on their backs. And there should be nothing in the crib with them. So that means no comforters, no quilts, no Afghans, no stuffed animals, no bumpers, no head shapers, no wedges. I mean, I could go on and on and on and on and on, but literally nothing. They do love to be swaddled, and swaddling is super important at the beginning, especially in the first 2 months, because they just came out of a very tight little womb and with no room to stretch, and to suddenly be thrust out into this great big world where their arms and legs are flailing about, they find it very hard to get settled down. So they do like to be swaddled. And we prefer a light, thin swaddle. So those muslin blankets or the Velcro swaddlers or the halos or the starfish things. They have all these little fancy things, but they shouldn't be thick or fleecy or made out of like a thick down or fleece or comforter type fabric. It should be a thin, breathable fabric to swaddle them in case it gets up over their face. So they can be swaddled, but that's all that should be in the crib with them, or the bassinet with them. For the first few months, we prefer that they sleep in the room with you so that you can kind of get used to their noises and kind of get used to what they sound like, kind of learn what their coughing and their gagging and all of that stuff sounds like. And then usually by about 4 to 6 months, you can move them into their own rooms. And so that's kind of the safe sleep talk that I give, I'm going to focus a little bit on the alone part of the Back to Sleep campaign. That means not in your bed, not on your couch, not on your easy chair with you. Unfortunately, we have lost just too many kids. I've lost several patients this way, newborns that just shouldn't have happened, and it's sad, and I don't want to say it's anybody's fault, because these things they're accidents. You think you're going to wake up, but you will never be more exhausted than those 6 weeks after you have a baby. You think you're going to wake up, you're not going to wake up. So you're laying in bed and you've got that baby right there in the crook of your arm, and you think when she rolls over or you roll over, you're going to wake up and you're going to feel it, but you don't. And they just can't last that long. So it's so important that the baby not be in the bed with you, or your husband's laying on the couch watching TV and he's got him on his chest, and you leave to go to the store and he falls asleep. And the next thing you know, he rolls over on top of him. It's just so disastrous. So I always tell parents, I don't care when you're awake. I don't care if you hold that baby 24 hours a day. Good. Spoil him, love him, squeeze him. But if you're feeling sleepy, put him in a safe sleep space. And that means flat and firm and alone on the baby's back. The other important thing that parents always ask me about is, well, what about when he pukes? What if he pukes in his sleep? So normal, healthy babies have a gag reflex, just like you and me. And so when we puke in our sleep, we don't choke to death. Drunk people do, and high people do, and people who are neurologically devastated choke to death on their own puke. But normal, healthy, neurologically intact humans don't choke to death on their own vomit, and that includes newborn babies, because they have a gag reflex. So if they puke in their sleep, they're going to cough, gag, sputter, turn their head back and forth, and they're going to get it out, and they'll be okay. They're going to wake you up, you're going to pick them up, pat their little backs, and they'll get all their stuff out. They're not going to choke. They will be fine completely on their backs. So on their backs, in their own crib, with a light swaddle and nothing else. So what about those babies that you cannot get to sleep in their little beds? They're 3 to 4 weeks old. You've tried everything. Every time you lay him down, they're sound asleep. Oh, thank God, he's finally asleep. And you lay him down gently into the little bassinet, and you're so careful, and you just step away. And then the next thing you know, boom, he's wide awake, screaming, crying. He will not settle down. You pick him back up. He falls right back to sleep again. What the heck do you do? And so many moms, including myself, have just sat awake for hours at night, just trying to get that baby to stay asleep. So here are some tricks. You want to try to make that bed as womb-like as possible. So we're trying to trick the baby into thinking that he's still being held even when he's not. So you're going to try to think about all of his senses. So you're going to make it warm. So it's already going to be preheated with a hot towel or a heating pad or whatever you have, so that the sheets and stuff are already a little bit preheated. Obviously, take that out before you put the baby in there. Another little trick is to sleep with whatever you're swaddling the baby with. So it should go from your washer and dryer to your bed with you or daddy or whoever, the parents are, whoever the caregivers are, sleeping with them for a night or two. So it starts to get that smell, and then use it in the baby's bed. So you'll have the heat and the smell wrapped around the baby, then some white noise. So babies just came from a super loud environment inside mommy. It's not quiet, it's very loud. So, and there's the gurgles and the voice, and all of a sudden they're in this bedroom and it's super quiet, and they're trying to sleep, and they're just looking for sort of what they are missing. So getting a white noise machine, they make apps, you can buy the machines that make a heartbeat like rhythmic noise. And it should sound like a heartbeat from inside mommy, that, and that's what they're looking for. So you got the sound and the smell and the warmth. And then they do make these great little doodads that you can stick onto the bassinet, onto the leg of the bassinet or the rim of the bassinet, that vibrate the bassinet, so the baby thinks that it's shaking. And so those can help a lot. And then binkies. I'm a big fan of binkies, pacifiers. So I know some people aren't, and that's okay, but I am a big fan. Babies do love to suck on stuff, and sometimes they just want to suck forever and ever, and you don't have to be a human pacifier if you don't want to be, and they can't just take a bottle 24/7, so sometimes they just want to suck on something. So putting that binky in their mouth and letting them suck while they're in a nice little warm, cozy thing that smells like you and sounds like you and is shaking around can kind of help them get settled. And then the last ditch effort is to lay down in your bed, pull that bassinet up as close as you can to the bed, throw your arm over into the bassinet and lay it on top of the baby's like chest. And so it's kind of right up by their face. They can feel you, they can smell you, and kind of gently just pat them until they fall asleep while they're inside the bassinet. And they'll get used to it that way. You can invest a few nights of really crappy sleep to get several months of good sleep until we regress again. And we're going to talk about that too. So those are kind of my tips for getting your newborn into the bassinet and out of your arms to get a good night's sleep. As we move forward, and so hopefully, like I said, you've gotten them used to sleeping in their own bed in the bassinet, and things are going well, and they're waking to feed and then going back to sleep. Then at this point, they pretty much just, wake to feed and then go right back to sleep, hopefully. As they get to 4 months, it's pretty commonly known that babies go through like a sleep regression between 4 and 6 months. Many pediatricians kind of poo-poo it and say it doesn't exist. I mean, I don't know if scientifically that there's this big study, or I don't know, but I can tell you that so many parents come and talk to me about it, and that the babies were sleeping great and now they're not. And so, but I think one of the things that does happen around 4 to 6 months is that babies develop object permanence. And if you don't know what that is where when your baby drops a toy or you put something under a blanket, if they don't have object permanence, that little toy or that binky has completely ceased to exist. It's gone. If you leave the room, you don't exist anymore. They can't remember that you were there. But after about 4 to 6 months, now they remember. They know that toy is still there, and they'll peek over the edge of the high chair, or they'll peek around the room to look and see where you went, because they know that you're still there. And so the same thing happens at night. You rock them all the way to sleep, and you lay them down and you sneak out. And then when they wake up in the middle of the night, suddenly you're gone and they don't know where you went. And so what are they going to do? They're going to cry for you, because they just don't know what else to do. They don't know how to self-comfort because they've never been taught, because you can't sleep train a 3-month-old and a 4-month-old. They just can't be taught that. And it's really hard to let a 3-month-old or a 2-month-old cry it out. And I would not recommend it. Most sleep experts don't recommend letting little babies like that cry it out. That usually is saved for kind of a later sleep training process. So around that age is usually when that starts to happen. You can do some things to kind of help encourage them to put themselves to sleep. And the most important thing is to start taking feeding away from sleeping. So feeding is no longer an important part of the going to sleep process, so that when they do wake up in the middle of the night and they don't need to eat anymore, which should start to happen around 4 to 6 months, that they can go through the whole night, 5, 6, 8 hours without food. They don't need to be brought food anymore in the middle of the night when they wake up. So maybe move that feeding up 10, 15, 20 minutes, and also move it away from the sleeping area. So come up with a good bedtime routine that happens near where they're going to go to bed, but move the feeding somewhere away from where they're going to go to bed and move it up a few minutes. Make it fun. We're talking, we're watching a show, we're singing a song, whatever it is. And then we do our bedtime routine where we read a book, we rock, it's quiet, until they're pretty drowsy, maybe almost all the way asleep. And then you put them in with the pacifier and whatever, and try to get them to go to sleep. And you probably will still have to rock them all the way to sleep. Some babies have to be, some babies don't. You kind of just, you'll know your own kid. My kids were always had to be rocked all the way to sleep. And then we eventually just had to sleep train them later on, like when they got a little bit older. So it's pretty normal for babies to need to wake every 2 to 4 hours to eat until they're about 10, 11 pounds and until they're about 6 to 8 weeks old. Then after that, they should start to be able to stretch it out longer and longer and longer because they're capable of storing fat and going longer between feedings. And then they can hopefully start clustering feedings up throughout the daytime so that they don't need to eat as much at night and give you longer and longer stretches. Hopefully. By 6 months, they definitely do not need to be awake at night to eat. They should be able to sleep from the time you put them to bed until the time they get up in the morning and eat all their food throughout the day. If by 6 months your baby is still waking at night to eat, what you might try doing is bringing a little bit less and a little bit less every time, or you can start bringing in just like an ounce or two of water in the bottle, which they don't want, and that's not very exciting. So they may kind of decide it's not really worth it and not want it. And certainly some of that's going to be really individualized. So I would talk to your pediatrician at the 6-month checkup about what they're doing with sleeping and eating, because if they're still not growing well, if they have developmental issues or other medical problems, some of these pieces of advice may not apply. So talk to your pediatrician at 6 months if your baby is not sleeping through the night to decide whether or not it is appropriate to withdraw nighttime feedings from them at that time. Okay, so moving forward, as we get into like the 9 to 12 month feeding, again, we really should be able to sleep through the night and go to bed all by ourselves and not require a feeding to fall asleep. By 7 months, 6 to 7 months, babies can start to have a lovey, and loveys are super important. There's actually a medical term for loveys. They're called transitional objects. So, and they're called transitional objects because it's the transition from being mommy and daddy dependent for soothing to being self-dependent on soothing and using that transitional object to soothe ourselves. So it has to be something safe for the baby that can be in the crib with them. I love those little taggies that are like, maybe 8-inch by 8-inch, 9-inch by 9-inch with the little tags on them. Diaper cloths are perfect because you can buy 20 of them and just wash them and interchange them as their lovey. Those little stuffed animal heads with the blanket bodies are great. You just have to make sure that there's no like button eyes or button noses or things that are ribbons and stuff that can come off that they can choke on. So right around 6 months, you're going to start using the lovey as a comfort thing. So they bump their heads or they're upset, you're going to grab the lovey, and when you comfort them and kiss their boo-boos, you're going to bring lovey with you and you're going to use it to comfort them. During feeding times, you bring lovey with you and you're going to use it to comfort them. So then every night when they go to bed, lovey goes in the crib with them. And so that we're going to start to associate that with sleep time, and they're going to start to associate with comfort. So that way, when you're leaving them to their own devices, as they are 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 months old, they're going to have that thing in the crib with them and in their bed with them to help soothe and comfort them. So we get into 9 to 12 months and your baby is still not sleeping through the night. What are we going to do? We're going to sleep train them. And it's not fun, but it is totally worth the investment. I have a vivid memory of sleep training Maddie, and we lived in this teeny tiny little house in Belleville. And so it was so tiny that you couldn't get away from her bedroom because it was an old garage and we had converted it to a bedroom. And so we're sleep training her, and I literally had to go outside and put headphones on and turn music on and get a Diet Coke and sit outside on the front porch because I could not listen to her screaming anymore. It wasn't that long, but as a new mom, my first baby, it was terrible. And you just feel like this horrible person letting your baby cry. However, like looking back now, what I tell parents a lot is when we sleep train, and I'm going to go through the process with you, when we sleep train, what you are actually teaching your child is not that you're abandoning them. It's not that you are sick and tired of their crap. It's that you have confidence in them. It's that you believe that they can do this themselves. It's also that you're coming back and you always come back when you say you're coming back. And man, is that an important lesson for your kids to learn. If you say you're coming back, you're coming back. And you can do this, kid. You can do this by yourself. And man, that's so, so important for kids to learn. So there's a method called the Ferber method, and it is very strict. It's Ferber, F-E-R-B-E-R, Dr. Ferber, he's a pediatrician. And you can totally use that method. It is very, very strict. I was taught, when I trained at Cardinal Glennon, a little bit of a different way to do it. So this is kind of the way that I was taught. When you're ready, you're going to decide that this is it. This day forward, baby's sleeping on their own. You're going to start a bedtime routine that does not involve food. You're going to do that bedtime routine. Preferably, it's going to involve some reading and some singing of songs and lovey. You're going to sit, rock, get baby nice and drowsy, and you're going to put her in her bed, and you're going to tell her, I love you, night, night, and you're going to kind of lay her down, and you're going to walk out the door and close it, and then you're going to leave. And you're going to set a timer for 5 minutes. The timer doesn't start though until she starts to cry. If she's playing and cooing in there, that's fine. That's good. But when she starts to cry, the timer starts 5 minutes. You let her cry for 5 minutes. Then you go in, and then you're going to try not to pick her up, calm her down, pat her. I love you. It's night time. You got to go to sleep. Kind of push her back down in the bed. Make sure she's got her binkies, her loveys, whatever else she's thrown out of the crib. Walk out, shut the door, 5 minutes. 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. You keep going back in every 5 minutes. If you can add a little time and go 7 or 8 minutes, that's great. But you keep going every 5 minutes. The first time you do this, you might go back in there 30 times. 30 times. It's awful. I hope you don't. But eventually she's going to crash, and she's going to do that little in her sleep, and you're going to feel like the worst parent in the world, and you're really going to want my phone number, and I'm not going to give it to you. And then the next night, she's going to do it a little bit less. And then the next night, a little bit less, and a little bit less, and a little bit less, until that night when you put him down in the crib and he cries for like a few minutes, and then he's asleep, and you're going to be like, oh my God, I did it. I did it. And I promise you, it works every time. I promise you, if you don't go back and give in, it will work. And by going back in every time, you're showing them compassion, you're showing them confidence, and you're showing them consistency. And boy, those are such keys for parenting as you move through childhood, and teaching them to be good humans who are self-confident and self-reliant. So it's every 5 minutes. You got to have a lovey, you got to have a routine, and you got to stick to it, and you can't go back. And oftentimes you'll get this going and they'll do great, and they'll hit a new developmental stage at 12 or 18 or 20 months. And sometimes you gotta do it again. Thanks, Tanya. It does work. I promise. And it is totally worth it. You'll lose some sleep for 3 or 4 nights, but it's so worth the investment. One last little tip about this is that the earlier you do it in life, the shorter it takes. So if you wait until your kid's 18 months old, they're going to persist for so much longer, and they may have figured out how to climb out of their crib, and then you've lost. So if your kid has already figured out how to get out of their crib and get out of their room, this method doesn't work anymore, because they're just going to come out after you every single time. So this has to be done while they're still in their crib, and they can't get out. So, and yeah, Jennifer, there are a lot of variations on this method, and certainly I would encourage parents to do, to vary it so that it works for your family, because not every family is the same and not every kid is the same. So you certainly have to do, what works for your family, but I think the gist of it is probably about the same. And then, some pitfalls with that would be, going in and picking them up and rocking them, or bringing them into your own bed. And bringing them into your own bed is certainly a sign that you've kind of lost the battle. We've all done it. I mean, don't think that I haven't done it, because I have. It is really hard to break that habit once you do it. Okay, so I'm going to move on and talk about toddler times and bed escapees here in a second, unless you guys have any questions about, oops, looks like somebody does have a question, and I'm trying to Oh, toddler. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna talk about. So that kind of works. Like I said, it works best if you're about under 15 months or so, 16, 17 months. Then you're getting into that 18 to 24 month. And man, they are so much smarter and so much more manipulative. And they can use words like, but I love you, mommy. And so it's a lot harder. And they can climb out and come after you and open doorknobs and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it does get a little harder when you're getting into that, like about 18 months to 3 to 4 years old. And so here's what I do. Oh, Erin, how early can you start sleep training? Probably about 6 months. You can start as early as 6 months, if you want to. Okay, so for toddlers and kids in big girl beds, this is what I recommend because, like I said, you can't let them cry it out. They're just going to come after you. You may have to try this method. And it has a name. Sleep medicine calls it something, but I can't remember what it is. You're going to start off by staying in their room with them while they fall asleep, which is usually what they're after anyway, is they want you to stay in there while they fall asleep. So you're going to put them in their bed. You're going to do the same thing. We're going to read a book. We're going to sing a song. We're going to rock until you're pretty drowsy and you're going to go in your bed, but mommy's going to stay right here in bed with you. I'm not going anywhere. Bring a book. Try not to be on your phone. And I say that because we're trying to set good examples for our kids, that laying in bed on our phones is a terrible, terrible example. And so bring a book, bring a magazine, bring some music to listen to, because this is going to take a while. So settle in. And you're going to have to stay there till he falls asleep. Try to keep hands off. Try not to be patting and rubbing and be real involved. Let him sleep in his bed, but you're present. You're going to do that for a week or two. Then you're going to move to the floor and you're going to tell him, I don't know, mommy's not comfortable in the bed, or, you need more room, whatever, but you're going to be on the floor, but mommy's right here. I'm not going anywhere. Daddy's going to stay right there. You're fine. Stay right there. Same thing. Read your book, wait until he falls asleep. But you're going to tell him, you have to be very honest at this age. You cannot lie to them. But once you fall asleep, I'm going to my room to go to bed. But I will stay here until you fall asleep. Then week or two goes by, and every week or two, you're going to move a little further and a little further and a little further away from their bed, heading towards the door. Then you're going to get to the point where you're sitting in the doorway, and perfect. You're going to tell them, I'm staying right here, not going anywhere. Then you're going to get to the point where you're just outside the doorway. So you're kind of outside the door. I can still see you. I'm right here, but you're outside the door and you're sitting right there. The next week is going to be the big one. And that's one where you have you're sitting outside their room and you're going to tell them, oh no, I forgot my book. I got to go get it. I'll be right back. And you come back. So you're going to go stomp, 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 stomp. You come right back. You sit down. I'm back. And then you sit down. And then every couple of nights, you're going to increase the amount of time that you're gone. And hopefully at some point they crash while you're gone and they just get used to you just not necessarily being right there. I got to go turn the laundry into the dryer. Oh shoot, I forgot to plug my phone in. Oh no, I left my shoes on the whatever. We're parents. We can come up with a million lies. So you're going to find a million reasons to just walk away, but you come back and you always come back. Always, always, always. And so eventually they'll just get used to falling asleep without you in the bedroom. And then eventually you can just sort of be like, okay, night, I'm actually going to go get a couple things done, but I'll come check on you in a few minutes. And then that's just going to be your routine. You go back and you check on them every couple of minutes until they fall asleep. Of course, then what happens when they wake up in 3 hours and they come stomping into your room? I woke up, you weren't there. I want to sleep with you. What do I do? So now you've got two choices. You can give in and just say, screw it, and let them sleep in your room. I'm not going to lie. We did it for many, many years. But we had one rule, and that rule was you can sleep in my room, not in my bed. Because I need my sleep and I cannot sleep with people touching me. So not in my bed. We made a pallet on the floor, and God's honest truth, that kid slept on the floor off and on for years. Sorry, Maddie, if you're watching this. telling all your secrets. So yeah, that's what she did until she was, I don't know, probably elementary school age. And then, she wanted something big in her room. And we were like, well, that's only going to happen if you're going to spend all night in your room. You can't do that when you're coming in our room. And that worked. And she's never come in since. So that is one way to do it. You got to set hard and fast rules and you got to stick with them. And when they come into your room, you just have to say either yes, you may, or no, you may not. And if you do the no, you may not, and that's just going to be your hard and fast rule, you march their little heinies right back to their room, put it back to bed and walk away and go back to bed. If you have a repeat offender who just continues to get up multiple times, then you can do something called the ticket method. So they get 2 tickets every night. And children need actual visual representation of these types of things. They are not great with the nebulous sort of, you get 2 chances. You're going to need to actually print out or cut out 2 paper tickets, and they get 2 tickets or 1 ticket. When they need to get up and come to your room, they're going to have to pay a ticket. When they're out of tickets, too bad. They can't come in. So they better use them for something real important, like they're bleeding, or something very serious has happened. So they just need to know they can't just be coming in your room, for no reason. They've got to use the ticket for something very, very important. And so they choose wisely. And so those are some little tricks that you can use to help them learn to stay in their bed. Night lights are great. Monster spray is great. Having stuffed animals in the room that they can, sort of have as a barrier and something to like make them feel safe. Other tricks are, we at one point bought Maddie a bed tent. Though that was great because she felt super safe in there. They're like these little pop-up tents and you put them over the mattress, and it has like a little Velcro door, and they go inside. And I mean, some kids love it, some kids might hate it, but it does seem to help for some kids. So you sometimes have to get a little bit creative with those older kids, getting them to stay in their beds and sleep through the night. How do you gradually move out of the room with the door closed? You probably are gonna have to have the door semi-open for a while and maybe just leave it cracked. And so that way they can kind of see that you're in the doorway. And then eventually you'll have to tell them, okay, we're going to do the door closed now. But I'll come in and check on you. And then you open the door and you check on them and then you close it back up and maybe try something like that. That's probably my best suggestion. Okay, so kind of moving on to a little bit older kids, but I think some of these tips are going to apply to younger kids. And I probably should have mentioned this maybe a little bit earlier because it is one of my biggest. Ooh, what about toddlers in a crib? She goes to sleep on her own just fine at bedtime, but she wakes up every 3 hours. Oh, come on, phone. Every 3 hours crying and goes back to sleep instantly if you pick her up, but if we don't stay with her for 10 minutes each time. You probably should try to sleep train her. I think it'll take some time. She's a little bit older and that's okay. But if she'll stay in her crib and she doesn't get out of it, then bonus. So I think you should probably try to sleep train your older toddler, preschooler, with the cry it out method, but she's gonna be very persistent and you're gonna have to be super persistent and just like tuck yourself in for a few weeks of hell and know that it's worth the investment later on. And how old did you say she was? You said she was a toddler, so I'm assuming she's under the age of 2, maybe a little over 2. I mean, to me, a toddler is not over the age of 3 for sure. That would be a preschooler. So Elizabeth, I'm assuming she's 2 or under, in which case, yeah, you can totally still use the cry it out method, and it's going to take a while, but you can at 22 months, perfect, you're set. Yep. Totally just use the cry it out method, and it's going to take some time, but it will be worth it. And generally speaking, if you do the cry it out method for the going to sleep process, it will fix most of your nighttime problems as well, because when they wake in the night, you're going to let them cry it out at night as well. And you're not going to go immediately in there. I'm sorry if you can hear heavy breathing. It is my Labrador. It is not some strange weirdo. It's my black lab. So I apologize. Anyway, if they are crying, if they're crying at night, you're still going to do the same time frame of 5 minutes, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, 10 minutes, and try not to go in there in the middle of the night, unless you absolutely have to. And so my animals, I swear to God, my animals and these live broadcasts are going to kill me. Harry, is it really necessary right now? Right now? No. Dude, I'm not kidding. Okay, I'm going to have to let him out. Otherwise, this is going to go on for the next 30 minutes. 2 seconds, I promise. Hang on. Go outside, baby. Go outside. Go outside. Go on. Go on. Bye-bye. For the love. Okay. So that would be my suggestion is I think you got to do the cry it out thing. And I think you're going to have to do it through the night. Hi, Perry. Yeah, Perry is a gem. He's about 15. And, when he decides it's time to go out, it's time to go out. Okay. So going back, one of the things that I'm going to move into when we're talking about older kids and sleep problems is the television and the electronic devices. I think a lot of you are not going to want to hear what I have to say because the answer is zero. Zero electronic time should be used for going to bed. The studies are overwhelming in that they show that not only do they disrupt the falling asleep process, they also prevent kids and adults, that includes you guys, from getting into your deeper REM sleep. And therefore your sleep is not restful. It's not quality. You wake more frequently, even if you don't realize that you're waking. So you wake up more tired. You don't get good quality sleep. And for kids in particular, they only grow when they sleep. So if they're not getting good quality sleep, they're not growing well, they're not performing well during the day, they're not developing as well as they should, they're more irritable, they display ADHD qualities, they have learning problems in school, they're aggressive. I mean, I could go on and on and on for all the things that poor sleep causes in children and how many kids are misdiagnosed as ADHD and mood disorders and depression and anxiety who all they have is a sleep problem. And so the electronic usage has got to be zero when it comes to going to sleep. Lately, I have been really pushing with parents that for under the age of 3, the electronic usage should be zero. And that's based on some studies that have come out regarding electronics. And I'm specifically talking about phones and tablets and computers, not the television, when it comes to electronic devices. Now, the television does have the same effect on sleep, but not the same effect on development, because you can put the television on Paw Patrol and get out the Paw Patrol toys, and your kids can play Paw Patrol and act out Paw Patrol and still be using their imagination and having fun while the TV is on. But you turn on a Paw Patrol game on the tablet, and what do your kids do? And that is all you're going to get from them for the rest of the day. So that's my 2 cents on electronic devices under the age of 3. So no electronics in the bedroom, zero. No TV, no computers, no tablets, no phones. And that was our rule until our kids were teenagers, that they were not allowed to bring their electronics into their bedrooms at all. Yeah, I was that mom. I'm not that mom about a lot of things. I really was, God, I made a lot of mistakes. But in general, I was that mom about electronics. So no TVs for falling asleep, no tablets, no watching movies, none of that for 30 minutes before bedtime. And that, if you start that early, you're gonna prevent a lot of problems for them later on. Even older kids need a solid routine when it comes to bedtime, meaning that, we turn off electronic devices at this time, we switch over to non-electronic activities, reading, listening to music, doing a puzzle, whatever. And then take a bath, blah, 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 and then we move to the bedrooms and start going to sleep. Now, I don't mind if kids listen to music when they go to sleep, and if that requires having like an iPod or a phone in the room, that's okay. I mean, I don't, I think that music is so important for kids. And it turns out it doesn't matter what kind of music they listen to. So whatever your family likes or whatever you want them to be introduced to, that's great. Music is all kinds is wonderful. So let them listen to music. If that helps them fall asleep, then that's perfect. But yes, they can. Janelle, that is a great question. And they can listen to books. I think that's a great idea, is listening to Audible books is super. Yeah, I love that idea. And so that's really important for older kids, is to have a good bedtime routine, trying to go to bed at the same time every single night and get up at the same time every day. Supposed to be even on the weekends, which even I don't do, because God, I love to sleep in. But that's what you're supposed to do. But definitely on like your school nights, trying to go to bed at the same time, get up at the same time, in the same place, having a good bedtime routine, no caffeine before bed. Those are all good habits for your older kids, particularly your teenagers, to try to stay in. And really trying to help your teenagers not use their phones to fall asleep, and teaching them how much it hurts their sleep quality when they are trying to navigate all this stuff by themselves, and they're complaining that they're tired all the time and they can't get up, which they probably can't. Their sleep clocks do shift, as they approach teenage years. They, their little sleep clocks kind of cause them to want to go to bed later and wake up later. They've actually done some pretty interesting studies on that. If you were to move high school start times to about 9 o'clock, that school performance and attendance would improve significantly in high schoolers. I don't know how well that would work in reality, but it definitely shows that teenagers need to go to bed later and get up later to get their 8 to 10 hours of sleep. So, I think that's really like kind of all the big stuff that I want to talk about. I'm certainly open to any questions that you guys have about sleep or sleep routines or anything else, really. Anybody have any questions? I'll wait a few minutes. You guys also got to see my cat. It's been the animal bonanza tonight. Luckily, they took the chihuahuas downstairs because they were making a lot of noise. I think, like I said, I don't know if you guys caught the beginning, but I'm thinking I'm going to talk about colic and fussy babies next time. Okay. How about toddlers who lay in bed not crying for an hour plus at night? Tanya, I usually tell parents, if they're not crying, leave them alone. It's okay. No, Veronica, you cannot send Evie to my house to sleep. Although we'd probably have a lot of fun together. Okay, let me see. So, if they are not crying and they're happy in their beds or happy in their cribs, God, don't get them out. Especially like in the morning or the middle of the night. If they wake up and they're just cooing and playing with their feet or talking to themselves, leave them be. Do not go get them. Let them be for 10 or 15 minutes and let them learn that like the bed is, by God, the best place in the whole universe. Also, as they get a little bit older and it's safe to do so, put some toys or a couple of small, choose safe books in their crib with them, so that when they do wake up, if they want to, look at some books and talk to themselves and, as long as they're not bothering you, then it's totally fine. So, Tanya, if he's getting enough sleep, and for a toddler, we're hoping for 12 to 14 hours in a 24-hour period, then he's fine. Then that's completely fine. So a child with anxiety who wakes frequently in the night. So with anxiety, I think that a couple of things, and I'm assuming, Allie, obviously I know we're probably talking about some older kids since I know your kids. I think that that's something I would want to talk to some therapists about some sleeping techniques. There are some really, really great apps out there. One is called Calm, C-A-L-M. And then there's another one. Oh, God, I can't think of it off the top of my head. Anyway, they do these, they have these, they're like these meditation stories. And I used them for a while when COVID first started and I really could not sleep. I was having such awful anxiety about COVID and I could not fall asleep and I was waking all the time. And they offered the Calm app and some of the other apps for free to medical providers to help us with our anxiety. And so I tried it and it was amazing. And so they do these meditation stories and they teach breathing and they talk in these really calm voices, but it's sort of disguised in a story. And they make them for kids. So maybe check those out, Allie. They can listen to them in their headphones or you can play them over a speaker. I believe like if you've got an Echo or a Dot or one of those things, I think they offer those kind of like meditation stories for kids. So for you parents of older kids, you can check those out and see if they help. And then otherwise, maybe talk to your friendly neighborhood pediatrician about some pharmaceutical options. Just saying. Okay, so a 3-year-old who refuses to go to sleep for like 45 minutes a night. Liz, if it is taking them that long to fall asleep, I have said on here before that I don't want to give specific medical advice, but I think you might need some specific medical advice. And so if we're not your doctors, then call your doctor. If we are your doctors, then why don't you call us tomorrow? Because I think we might be able to give you some specific advice of something that maybe might help you. I hope like that if you're getting my code, hopefully you are, but I just don't feel like it's appropriate for me to give out specific advice on like things to take, things to try, in this forum. All right. Jennifer, did I talk about when to transition from crib to toddler? Oh, that's a great question. And I did not talk about that. So one, when they climb out, that's for sure the time. Because once they do that, it's totally not safe. They're going to fall and they're going to hurt themselves. 2, if they're too big. So if you have a gigantic child, like I did, then it's to the point where they weigh too much and they're too long for the crib. 3, if they ask, my first one was older. She was over 3 and she was very comfortable in there and I just left her. And then eventually she said, when can I have a big girl bed? And so then we did. And so those are pretty much that's it. You don't have to ever take them out until they grow out of it or they ask for it or they climb out of it. So that's when you have, last one, when they toilet train. So if they potty train, then you almost have to, because otherwise it's really hard for them to go potty at night. They need to be able to get up and go potty in the nighttime. Let's see. Can I sleep train my 6-month-old while he's still in your room? You can. It's not fun. But you can. He just can't see you. So maybe put a curtain or a barrier or something up so he can't see you. You're just going to have to sit there and listen to him cry, which is horrible. So you might want to get some noise canceling headphones or something so that you don't hear it as much. And then he has to have something where he can't see you. So he can't know that you're there and you're going to have to be super quiet and still. To be super sneaky and go in stealth mode. But yeah, you totally can. And potty training. When should they take their last drink before bed? Ooh. I mean, probably 30 minutes is fine for them to have something a little bit before bed, maybe an hour. I'd say 30 minutes to an hour before bed, they could have something to drink, some water. Definitely nothing with caffeine and nothing sugary, because that's going to make them pee even more. Robin says, I am amazing. Thanks, Robin. I appreciate that. Preschooler who only wants to sleep with his sister. I mean, I know who you are. And I just saw your cutie patooties the other day. Well, how does Kylie feel about that? I mean, if she's okay with it, then I'm okay with it. If she's not okay with it, then you could maybe try he can sleep in her room, but he has to sleep on the floor, kind of like you would do with a parent, and make a pallet on the floor for him in her room. But if she's okay with it at her age and he's okay with it, eventually one or the other of them will become not okay with it, and then you cross that bridge when you get to it. If she's not okay with it, then I think maybe you could try the method of, okay, you guys are getting too big for this, so you can come in her room, but you have to sleep on the floor because she's getting too big and there's no room in the bed. So these are the rules, and you have spoken. So you can try that. Rachel, what is a safe time to switch from crib to bed? I think I covered it. So if your toddler runs out of tickets and continues to get out of bed, do you just keep walking them back? Yes, you just keep walking them back. You can even put up a baby gate in their room so they can't get out and they just have to stay in there. And I know it sounds so cruel, but sleep is also super, super important. And like I said before, the other path is sometimes just give in and let them sleep in your room on the floor, but not in your bed, so that you have some boundaries there. And that being said, my other piece of advice is this: if they sleep in your bed, they're not going to sleep in your bed forever. When I'm talking about, like, your 3 and your 4 and your 5-year-olds, they won't sleep in your bed forever. They will eventually go to their own room. You're not going to have a 12-year-old who sleeps in your bed. You're not hurting them at that age to sleep in your bed. You are when they're 6 months old. That is dangerous. But when you've got a 3 or a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old who wants to sleep in your bed occasionally at night, are you going to hurt them? No, you're not. Is it drive you crazy? It probably does. So, I'm not going to say you're a bad parent because you let your kid come sleep in your room every now and then. So, that's totally up to you guys. I'm just trying to give you guys advice to help you how it, if you don't want it to happen. But that being said, if it does happen, I just don't necessarily think it's the end of the world. They're only little for so long, and then eventually they're gone and you're going to have your bed all to yourself forever. So, I just think that they're, sometimes they're little and they need comfort, and it's okay to comfort them. What's the best parent to reaction to waking up from a bad dream? A big hug, a stuffed animal, and, comforting them until they fall back to sleep, or until they're just kind of sleepy, and then everybody goes back to bed. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Megan. I enjoy taking time out of my day to talk because I like talking, and I talk all the time. And just ask my nurse, Dawn. I talk way too much. So I figured this way I can just talk and talk and talk and talk, and you can all just turn me off whenever you're done. And that way, when I'm in the room, she's not yelling at me to come out of the room because I am in there for way too long. So yeah. Okay. I think we have, people are starting to drop off. So that probably means I'm talking for too long. Again, I am Dr. Jean Wagner with A to Z Pediatrics. This will be available on Facebook, forever. And then hopefully eventually on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight to talk about all of our sleep problems. I will see you guys again in 2 weeks to talk about colic and fussy babies. Thanks so much and have a great night.